The topic here I'm going to talk to Willie is about one word: connect. Connect will give you performance. Connect will make you live longer. And connect will create collaboration and synergy on ideas that the thriving of the world will be counting on. So that's it. I'm done. If you want to go back and come back 20 minutes later to listen to Chris, that's good. But if you want to stick around to look at some of the details, here we are. So 21st century, hockey stick curves, plenty of them. You've probably seen that before. Population growth in terms of, in 1900, 1.7 billion. By 2025, 8 billion people. Hockey stick curve of population growth. You might have seen less of this. Hockey stick curve of life expectancy. Look at US, the year 1899. At that time, US average life expectancy is 49 years old. At one time, they were only 39. So from 1800 to 1899, they already jumped about 10 years. China, 32. What happened? Since 1899, what US did is it increased its life expectancy with the expense of increased carbon consumption. China is chasing after a big drop there for the Cultural Revolution, but they're doing exactly the same thing. Increased life expectancy at the expense of increased carbon or fossil fuel consumption. So where we are today, from 1899 to 2014, US life expectancy grow from 49 to 79. China, 32 to 75, double the life expectancy. So part of the story is population growth. Part of the story is actually we are growing, longer living, and older, more old people to deal with. And I'm getting there one of these days, actually pretty soon. Another hockey stick because of the larger population growth and longer living is contaminants. In this case, air contamination, hockey stick curve for NO2, SO2, and also carbon emission. As a result, we are in the mess we are in. PM 2.5 distribution across the world right now. You think China is an issue, India is an issue, well, think about Africa too, and North America, 42% of US population in bad air quality. 90% of Europeans are living in area with poor 2.5, PM 2.5 or ozone. So that's where we are, 21st century. We create our own issue that we have to deal with. Can we solve it in Metropolis? So that's the first thing. Connection can make you live longer. Is it true? So we regress 100 US city. This is work done in-house. 100 US city regress density with how long they live in US. 18% correlation. Chances are the city is denser, you tend to live longer. So we go around the world. We look at all the major cities around the world compared to the country average. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, from Beijing to China, to New York to US, from Jakarta to Indonesia, the largest cities in the world outlive the country average. You may think it's the reverse, right? You know, it's a crime rate or all that stuff, people die early in city, but it's not true. So let's take Singapore for an example. This is the New Sands Hotel. You've never been there before, you should try it. It's really cool, 12 o'clock midnight, swimming in the pool, the infinity pool, look out to the skyline, wow. At one time, Singapore actually lived shorter than US in the 60s, but they crossed the line and now Singaporeans live longer in terms of life expectancy than US. The amazing thing is the slope. They are going at a different slope. What's that mean? Well, now I'm not saying this is true, but if you project it 50 years with that growth rate, and I know there are limitations to bodies and this may not happen, just simply projection of the growth rate. So don't go around and say, Luke said they're going to live until 89 in Singapore in 50 years. I didn't say that. But the point you get it, right, is that 6-degree difference. Singapore as a country is much denser than US. So denser country can live longer. Denser cities, or sometimes the connection can create resiliency. You've probably seen these studies done before in New York University. Inglewood versus Auburn Gresham. Auburn Gresham, more connected. People not afraid to go out to connect with the other. Inglewood, not so. Several minutes apart, both are African American communities. What happened? Not only Auburn Gresham people live longer in average, 5 years or more. The amazing thing is when the heat wave hit Chicago in the 90s, the death rate in Auburn Gresham is only 3 people out of 100,000 versus 33 out of 100,000 in Inglewood. Why? Because people are not afraid to connect each other and help each other, not only in normal times, but in times where resiliency is important. Connected community is more resilient. So we also regress 100 US cities. The amount of carbon emission per person versus their life expectancy. Guess what happened? It's all those cities that are San Francisco, that are LA, San Jose, the major cities, Honolulu, all those cities that come out in US, sorry about that, in US that people tend to live longer and also at the same time lower carbon per capita. This is the regression of 100 US cities again, against density versus carbon emission per person, downward sloping, meaning that as cities get denser, the carbon emission per person tend to decrease. Similar to the life expectancy, we go around the world and study London versus Britain, Toronto versus Canada, New York City versus US. All those big cities, the carbon emission per person outperform the country. This is where the integration part I said earlier, Anthony and I, we labor many nights together to make sure these points are connected. So this chart you've probably seen 1,000 times before is on transportation energy. One thing you may notice is funny. Why is New York's density not comparable to the Asian city? Think about Manhattan, very dense. Why is it not the same as Singapore? Why are all the North American cities up there? So we want to know, as Mr. Woods said earlier, we want to update the number. We want to make it current. We want to know, for example, the densest city in the world right now is Macau, 18,000 people per square kilometer. We want to know how that performed compared to, say, Edmonton, Canada, which is not very dense, 123 people with a lot of those black tar and all those, things up there, those fuel stuff up there, so they are probably not very efficient. But we want to know how they perform. So what do? We go out there using OECD data, 307 cities around the world, and we have to filter them to make sure they are somewhat developed, so we don't compare like Bangladesh with Manhattan, which is not very good. So we filter a little bit. So here are the North American cities. That's where they stand. The European cities, the Asian cities, and the combination of all the cities. Now, this is not just operating carbon. This is operating carbon. This is not just transportation carbon. It's transportation carbon plus operating carbon. We don't have embodied carbon yet, but this will be all we can get right now out there. The interesting shape of the curve, operating plus transportation carbon, looks shaped very much similar to the transportation carbon. What's more interesting? You can rapidly go down that density curve. If you are denser, you get the advantage really quick, down to about 5 tons per person per year. Some perspective for you, in US is about 17 tons of carbon per person per year average. In Singapore, for example, it's roughly about 6 or something, a little bit plus. So you can rapidly go down that density curve and get the benefit of lower carbon per capita with density. Great. But After that, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to get denser, and you don't squeeze that much out of that curve anymore. It's a diminishing return. In fact, it's approaching about maybe 3-4 tons of carbon per person if you look at that curve, using density alone. So we need more. Now, the other thing is North America city, actually they are not that not dense. They're actually quite dense. The problem, census data. The American cities all use like the metropolitan area, which, like, for example, Chicago, you include Naperville, and for those who come from Chicago, you know Naperville is like 40 miles away. So if you look at New York City metropolitan versus New York City, the New York City actually performed very well in terms of density and per capita carbon, but New York metropolitan, which even include part of New Jersey, is not performing as well. In fact, if you look at the New York City, is performing very close to Singapore. Remember the discussion about Macau and Edmonton? There you are. Macau at 3.6 tons per person per year of emission of carbon versus Edmonton, which is way up there at about 45, a little bit less than 45. Density can get you down to a certain level of carbon emission and green, but it's not everything. You need more. So this is system thinker. They connect in the building scale. We use 5,000 buildings in US, CBEX data 2003. Some can criticize it's not that heavy on tall buildings in that database, but nevertheless, do the regression. That's what it looks like. This curve looks like a German Shepherd growth rate, but it's actually the growth rate of energy consumption per unit area as the building get bigger and taller. What's the point? Number one is as the building get bigger and taller, per unit energy consumption increase. Number two, it increased significantly in the early part, and then it slowed down as building get taller, and bigger and bigger. So that's the curve. Much harder to be net zero energy if you are a tall building because of this curve. You consume more energy as the building get bigger and taller. But we are getting there. As system thinkers in US, at least at the building level, we have better handle on how to get to net zero. This is the 2014 data. There are 127 emergent net zero building or district that's not verified yet, 33 verified, and 53 low energy building. What's the point? The point is, at the building level, we got better handle. We are getting there in net zero. The largest net zero building right now in US is a warehouse, 34,000 square meter, about 360,000 square feet is a warehouse. So not exactly an office building. This is a building that we are doing, SOM is doing in Jakarta, Indonesia. It's a 530 meter tall, 90-story, 4 million square feet building. It comes with this little wind turbine at the top because it's Pertamina, it's the energy company. So there's showcase of some of the energy devices in terms of photovoltaic, in terms of wind turbine. And that's what it looks like in the observation deck. So you get 2 for 1. You pay for the observation deck to look at the field, and at the same time, you see Pertamina Energy Company generating wind power. But the key part of this building is actually urban geothermal. By using that 4 million square feet, 90-story building, 530 meter tall, this building currently in DD phase is net zero building, 10 times larger than the warehouse you see just now. But what's the point? The point there is we know better how to do a building level integration. How about connecting cities? Much more complicated. In order to be sustainable, we got to be, just like what Anthony said earlier, you got to be embodied zero, embodied energy is zero, transportation energy is zero, and operating energy has to be zero too. That is sustainability. Until we get there, sustainability is like we're just talking about it, we're not there. So this is one of the goals to get there, at least push towards that direction. It's a project we are doing in Chicago. It's called Southside. south or lakeside. Sorry about that. It's lakeside. It used to be a steel site in Chicago. Now it's vacant. And at the building level, we get to the most efficient building possible. But the important part of Lakeside is not about the building. It's about the integration as a system thinker to connect the buildings to the environment. The idea is to achieve the highest level of a thriving human community at the lowest impact to the environment. And for those engineers and physics people in the room, creating the highest level of thriving community at the lowest entropy. The word entropy, we don't know that anymore, but it's a physical law. It's a law of thermodynamics. It's like gravity. If you ignore it, it's still there. In order to get there, we actually leverage all the natural environmental resource we can find in terms of the lake to help create the heating and cooling energy through the district chill and hot water and chill water plant, combined heat and power. We are trying to minimize the use of the water, use waste to create energy, complete that cycle of generating power, generating good things for human society, then use the waste to regenerate power again, so complete that cycle. And one of the more important things is provide people with the data. This is part of the exhibit we are doing in the city of Chicago. The idea is a big data generation, provide people with data that they need. In this case, we have a rental bike program in Chicago. So you can actually rent a bike and ride to anywhere you want. So this actually tracks where the hotspots are, where people are picking up the bike, and where are they riding to. So you can see at different time of the day where people are picking up bikes and riding to. And this is an example of how the big data can help people. For example, if you're driving, you want to avoid certain hotspot of the bikers, this can help you. Or if you're a biker, you want to know in advance whether I can rent a bike downtown, this can help you. And there's tons of this data right now in Chicago. We have, the city is providing you to know where are the complaints of the rodents and potholes and everything you want to know. So that's the system thinker. In the 21st century, to achieve the highest level of sustainability, to reduce our embodied carbon to zero, operating carbon towards zero, and transportation carbon towards zero, we cannot just optimize the building at the building level and get it to net zero. There will be places and opportunities we have to do that. But when you enlarge the boundary, you achieve a much higher level of optimization than you shrink the boundary to the building level. We need a new generation of the system thinkers that can think like that. And it will be people in this room, in the stage, and everybody else that we need to talk to find out who are these people can create this urban symphony of the future to make urban environment sustainable. Where these people come from? It's in the city. Why? Study has indicated most of the patterns, the innovation, come from the area where people have the higher wages. And where do people have higher wages? In the cities. So chances are all this innovation is going to be in the city. It's like venues like this, where people get together, collaborate, and new ideas are formed. And together, we can make the world better, thriving of all the natural environment, including us, through this ideas generation in the city environment. Give you an example. This is a project we are working with New York City, Cornell campus in Manhattan. Why do they want to do that? A few years back, the city of New York realized that in order to be in the next century, they want collaboration. What are they missing? Engineers. So what did they do? They actually talked to Cornell to bring the engineers and some of this science and technology piece of Cornell campus into Manhattan. Why? Because distance is closer, density allow these people to collaborate more. So that's why they bring the Cornell campus into the city to generate ideas that can change the world. So in summary, it's about density, but the more important thing is about connect. Connect can help us live longer. Connect can help community to be more resilient. Connect can help cities perform better. And most importantly, Connect can collaborate, create synergy, ideas. Together, we can change the world for the better tomorrow. Thank you.